Hello and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I'm your host, Alacius
And
Inger.
I'm Duncan Sandlin. Welcome, 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 everybody. How are you today, Lacey?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We had good news today. We got a fun show. We'll go through Trump's Nevada speech and him going to probation and with some Marjorie Taylor Greene nonsense in there. Then Hunter Biden was convicted this week. And then, you know, some like the Epoch Times and Steve Bannon and some of those other guys got in trouble. We'll cover all that. So all that and more. But I want to start with some of the good news with the markets. So consumer price index came out. Inflation's down again. So that's good,
Right?
right? And we had a great jobs number earlier this week. It was like 70 or 80% higher than what was expected, even the high end of what was expected. So that was good. So wages are up. And I want you to think that's been the trend now for about 12 months. That wage growth has been beating inflation. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to tell you how big of a deal that is. That's the first time in our adult lives that's ever happened.
There we go.
Just to give you a sense. We're not that old, but it's like the last 30 years, that's not been the trend. So things are really good right now with the economy. But I want to get into this. Jerome Powell was talking about this, so I just want to jump into this article. Oh, hang on one sec. This might be helpful. All right. So Jerome Powell, um, inflation. What was it? Federal Reserve sees some progress on inflation with revisions. Just one rate cut this year. They previously planned on doing three. Now they're toned it back to just one because the economy's been really hot. So that's fair enough, right? So Federal Reserve officials said Wednesday that inflation has fallen further toward their target and level in recent months, but signaled that they expect to cut their benchmark interest rate just once this year. So just to give you sort of a pass, this is the former interest rates. Part of the thing that it's part of what's kind of I think heats up inflation though is raising the interest rate. I think so. It's kind of a double-edged sword here. They're trying to cool it down by squeezing money out of the market, but it hasn't always worked that way. But just to go historically, under Obama and stuff, the rates were really low for a long time after the Great Recession, and then they kept them near zero. And then under Trump, the economy started to heat up a little bit, not a lot more than it was under Obama, but then we started to see some slowing and whatnot, and they started to raise rates a little bit to sort of test the waters because they thought things were more stable. And then the pandemic hit, and they dropped rates again during the pandemic, and then the economy really heated up, and inflation really heated up. Partly, too, is the metric that they think. So inflation, traditionally, it's like wage growth will cause inflation. Raises in costs for businesses like tariffs or shorts in supply, things like that will raise inflation. And that's kind of what the Fed's working on. But in this last case, we happen to know for a fact that's not what caused the inflation to jump. What caused the inflation to jump was the companies realized people coming out of the pandemic, demand was real high. They just started jacking up the price just because they felt like they could get more. And people were still buying. And they kept doing that as long as people were buying, and that's what jacked inflation up so high. It was all artificial. And what they didn't do was give the money to their employees or raise the wages or anything like that. They just pocketed all that cash. That's why CEO pay went from what was the woman at GM? Her pay went from whatever it was 20 something to 31 million in like a couple of years. And yet your average worker at GM, executive on down, didn't see a pay increase during that time. Right? So it's just to show you. I think it's all good news though. So it's a good sign right now for the economy. They're gonna cut rates a little bit. The economy's really good right now, but it's not so hot that they're gonna keep rates jacked up forever. I don't know if you had anything to add into that. I mean, what it reminds me of a little bit is in the '90s, rates were around 5%, right? Which is kind of what they are now. Pretty much the entire '90s, and that was one of the biggest growth decades in American history.
Right.
and that was inflated a lot by the dot-com era. So having high rates isn't always a bad thing. It just makes it difficult to get loans. And it makes
It
rates.
makes people capable of borrowing less, etc. So it does impact like how much car people can buy, how much house they can buy, etc.
Right,
You know?
right. And so those are just factors coming in. So that's all good news, um, pretty much. But the other good news that came out was the jobs report, like I said, was tremendous. It was much bigger than anybody expected. And let's see, let's jump in. Pretty sure this is it. Let's jump into Fox News responding to the jobs report because they have a different take on it than reality.
I'm shocked.
This is something. 272,000.
Nancy Lazar was right. She was right.
She was right.
272,000. Everybody, the estimate was 185,000. And by the way, that blows even the top of the range from economists going in. The range was 120 to 258, and we came in at 272. The unemployment rate hit 4%. The estimate was 3.9%. So wow, this is something else. All right, government jobs. Well, here you go, 43,000. The government jobs number was 43K. Last month it was.
So I love Fox News. Notice how, look, it's all good. Everybody's sort of nodding, right? But she's getting into, okay, look, jobs numbers way up. Unemployment's at 4. They were hoping for 3.9, but 4, still pretty good. 4 is really low, right? It's the lowest it's been in a long time. Government jobs are up. I mean, all these good things are happening. So let's go to the Dow futures and the NASDAQ futures, which are slightly down a little bit so we can show some red and some negative on the screen. While we do this, I love Fox. They have to. There was no reason to go to this image.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, other than it cause shit.
8,000. We don't get an estimate for that number, just to let everybody know here. Okay, let me go through some of the other pieces of this. Labor force participation, that rate 62.5. That's a little weaker than last month. And then again, that rate 4%. Factory jobs 8,000. Private sector 229.
All right, so we'll get into that in a second. But all in all, phenomenal report. And Biden is now, I mean, not even before this, I don't think there's, I think he's actually got the record for jobs created under a president. Which is a big jump from Trump, because when Trump left office, he was negative jobs created. He's only the second president in history to do that. Him and Herbert Hoover. Right? So there's that going on. But I mean, this is all great news. So let's see, now that they've sort of kind of talked about how good the news is, let's see what their take on that is. Because we're going to skip ahead just a little bit here.
Is saying, and that's exactly what Joni was saying as we went into this, Maria.
Okay.
So
Yep.
the revisions are
Yep.
key. I'm going to dig into this right now.
We'll get back to you on the revisions, Cheryl. I know you're watching that. Markets are down across the board on a much stronger than expected jobs number. As I mentioned before we...
Okay, so already we got to get into the bullshit. So markets are down on the strong number. I just want to go to this. This is this right here is the S&P 500. All right, so this is for the last year. It's been way up. Okay, this is the last 5 days. So when they did this report, right, was back on the 10th, right? So market was down early in the morning, but then finished way up. So she's talking about a minor blip and trying to make it seem like there's some signal there. It's just crazy. They're looking for any negative thing they can find.
Of course they are.
Why wouldn't they? So let's just go into some more because they're just full of shit. And I love this. You got 7 people in here. I mean, report the news. I'm not trying to pick a character in Street Fighter. What the hell is going on?
Really? Are you sure?
I mean,
went into this, Piper Sandler is telling clients that their indicators are, and this is their AI is saying 218,000. We come in at 272,000 jobs, and immediately markets sell off. Vance Ginn, jump in here. We haven't heard from you. I want to get your take on this report.
Well, it's definitely better than expected, as you've already mentioned. And some of the key things that I've been looking at have been part-time jobs, which were essentially flat for what I can see so far in the report. When you look at government jobs, which has been growing too quickly, and unproductive government jobs, taking from the private sector, those up.
Okay, that's some horseshit right there. That's the thing that I'm going to tell you. So government jobs, yeah, about a fourth of all jobs are government jobs.
Sure.
And most companies that you work for get a lot of money from government contracts. That all trickles out. That's the whole point. The government issues money and spends money, and then we pay taxes. That's what gives money its value. If the taxes weren't there, or they weren't giving us or putting money out or buying shit and building infrastructure and doing all these projects and paying for the military, if they weren't doing any of that, money would have no value. The whole system would collapse. So what he's saying is horseshit. Yeah, government jobs are up. They're not unproductive. They're government jobs. And a lot of this money that's come out from the infrastructure bill, what has it gone to? Paying for construction. So that's construction workers, construction companies, the people that make the materials. I mean, it all goes out. It all spends. So I don't know what he's talking about. But yeah, government jobs and government spending help the economy. They always have. I mean, unless you're just anti-Keynes or something, I don't know what his deal is, but
42,000. I mean, you're really looking at about 230,000 private sector jobs. And you look at average weekly earnings, which also have not been able to keep up with inflation for over the last few years. We're continuing to see somewhat flat there. One thing that I did want to
that's not true. He's doing average weekly earnings, which is a different number than actual wage growth. Wage growth is up for the last 12 months. So he's picking a slightly different metric to sort of squeeze it out.
Out was that the revisions were 15,000 lower over the last 2 months. So we continue to see revisions lower. So take this one with a little bit of a grain of salt. At the same time, with what the Fed's doing, the Fed's balance sheet's still too.
Okay, so that's fucking hilarious to me too. So the revision was, okay, initially they had an outside projection a couple months earlier that it was going to be like 200,000 jobs, right? And then they revised it to like 180 something, right? As things changed, which happens when you forecast. Things change and you make projections. The upside is when you're making projections, you're making it on information you have now in the present, right? What you don't have is the information that happens in the future, because you can't predict the future. And so, yeah, they revised it down, but then even the downward revision, it was still 70-something thousand jobs above the high-end estimate, the initial estimate. So it beat even the previous estimate. So but you got to take it with a grain of salt, Lacey. So it beat every estimate by a shit ton, but that doesn't mean it's good news.
God, Fox News. I mean, seriously, I gotta tell you, that entire time they were showing the red down arrows on the stock market while not talking about that.
Right.
Really driving me crazy. I was like, what is wrong with you guys? That's not even what you're talking about. Right. It's sort of like just like deciding to show an arbitrary grizzly bear just to set the mood, you know?
Right. That's what it is. And if you watch Fox, they're masterful at this. What was that one woman? Nancy Grace used to be like the best at this, where she would say one thing and show you a different image to try and skew the viewer's sort of perspective of it. So we're talking about how great things are, but we're showing you an image that shows things are down. But if you read the image, that's only the futures, and they're slightly down. And it's like, yeah, that shit happens all the time. Why? Because people are trying to adjust their bets for the futures. I mean, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but generally it goes up. So it's just one of those things where it's just a weird thing. But I want to get to a little bit more of his take, because it's really stupid.
too large. And so we've still got a lot of things that are propped up across the economy. And so this is a better than expected report. But also look at labor force participation rate. It went down to 62.5%. So it's another thing to look at.
Okay, I want to get that. So that's horseshit. So two things here. The first one that's horseshit is he's talking about wages versus inflation, and there's a problem there. So let's go into this. So, wages versus inflation. Here you go, everybody. The Economics Policy Institute. Average wages have surpassed inflation for 12 straight months. This is back in May. So now we're at 13 straight months. Right? Because we're in June now of 2024. Average hourly wage growth has exceeded inflation for 12 straight months, blah, blah, blah. Average real wages rise for 12 straight months as prices decelerate faster than nominal wage growth. So I give you this little chart. All right, so the nominal wage growth is the light blue, right? And that's been pretty good. And then the medium blue has been inflation. Inflation peaked up here, and then it went back down. And then real wage growth had bottomed out, right, after the pandemic, and now it's come back up again. Okay? So real wage growth is actually, they're looking at a bigger basket of stuff with real wage growth, but it gives you a better sense of how things are going. It's the bottom dropped out of the labor market and millions of lower wage workers lost their jobs. Average real wages then fell sharply in the pandemic recovery as many of those lower wage workers returned to work, pulling down the average. Real wage growth continued to decline as inflation rose steadily due to supply chain bottlenecks and shifts in consumer demand. As quickly as inflation rose, peaking at 9.1% in June 22, it fell, hitting 3% in June of 2023. Nominal wage growth is the year-over-year growth in wages, not adjusted for inflation. So it's all been good. It's all been coming back up, and inflation's been going down. Right? Wage growth's been going up, inflation's been going down. That's what you want to see. So he's already full of shit on that one. The second thing that he was kind of stupid on here was talking about labor force participation rate. And I'm just going to go to Fred here. This is the St. Louis Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So this is labor force participation rate. This is the number of people who are actually either have jobs or are looking for jobs. Okay, that's what this metric is. It's a little different than unemployment. So as you can see, and from this goes, I just went back 10 years. So from 2014 up to the pandemic, it was pretty flat under Obama. And then under the pandemic, of course, it bottomed out because we were all hiding in our homes, right? And
right. We were told to stay home.
Yeah, and then
at least most people, you know.
Right, and then you get to like 2020, near the election, it shot back up again as things calmed down a little bit, even though it was still kind of dangerous. But it was a very short time it bottomed out, and then it came back up a little bit, and then the Biden became president here in 2021, and then it started to climb steadily, and it's kind of been sort of flat here. It's not exactly where it was, but it's pretty close now. So this whole thing that labor force participation rate is down, that's not down. It's gone up consistently. Right? So he's just full of shit. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because it's all stupid stuff. I mean, they're idiots. And part of it is because it's an election year. They want Trump to win. So we can't have a good economy under Biden because that's bad. And you kind of want to sit there and go, look, when Trump was president, if you'd have told me the economy was doing this well, I'd have been fucking thrilled.
Sure.
I mean, whose side are you on? I mean, when he became president, my hope was, well, hopefully he'll do a really good job. It didn't happen, but I hoped for it.
Well, let's be honest. Are people really out there saying, gee, I really hope this president fucks everything up and makes my life miserable?
Well, that they are.
I mean,
Their viewers are, I'm sure.
Well, they are, but I feel like whenever the election happens, I'm nervous if it doesn't go my way, but I'm kind of hoping whoever he or she is exceeds my expectation and does some stuff that's way better than I thought they were going to do, you know?
Right. That's just the difference in how we think. Because we're thinking,
apparently.
Yeah, we're thinking we want to be successful and make money and be good, and we don't want, rioting in the streets and shit like that. We don't want people starving. That's how we think about it. When they think about it
Right.
is, we want to win at any cost. So if our guy's not in there, it's bad. That's why they run around saying the economy's terrible and blah, 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 when it's really good. They're telling you up is down, left is right. I mean, it's all horseshit. But we talked about some of why that is and what's going on with it. But I wanted to jump into this. I thought this was a good one.
This is fun.
Consumer expectations for stocks hit 3-year high, which means people are expecting the stock market to go up. Consumers are most bullish they've been on the outlook of stocks since May of 2021. It's right around the pandemic. The latest survey of consumer expectations from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York showed the mean perceived probability that stocks will be higher in the next 12 months rose to 40.5% in May, up from 38.7% in April. So that's good. So people are more optimistic now about the market, which means more investing, which is part of the reason why when I showed you that graph earlier of the market here, it's been up. I mean, if you look at just year to date, we had kind of a flub here in April, May, but it's up. But if you look at overall from the year, it is way up. It went from 4,200 to now it's 54. That's a huge jump in a year. If you're invested in the market right now, you are raking it in. I know all my clients are. And this is kind of a side note for personal finance stuff. This is when you want to retire. Is when markets are up.
Yeah, I was going to say this makes those near retirees pretty happy and feeling pretty hopeful.
Yeah. Because when you're retiring and the market's down, you have to withdraw money. Well, you're withdrawing money at a lower point. So it's sort of a loss, right? Your money doesn't last as long. Even if the markets go up later on, you've bled so much out of it, you have less to compound. So if you retire, you want to retire when the markets are going up, because then your money will last even longer than it normally would. So that's always a good sign. So, that's why I was always panicking during the recession, or not the recession, during the pandemic, when all those people retired, and I was like, well, maybe we should see what the markets are going to do before because if they tank and you just retired, you are really screwed. So, fortunately they didn't. The Treasury dumped like $1 trillion into it. So, but yeah, so that's it. I just wanted to say all that. That's good stuff for financial news. Do you have anything you want to add to maybe the retirement thing?
No. You know what? I'm honestly glad to hear this report, just because I feel like, Duncan, we've spent years with people just sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop with the expectation that we were going into recession. I feel like people have been expecting us to go into recession for a solid 5+ years at this point.
Right.
That hasn't actually truly transpired. So having this information coming out that actually people are expecting things to go well in the stock market is kind of refreshing.
Oh, absolutely.
After 5+ years of doom, gloom, and this,
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, the thing about it too is we've been dealing with that. We dealt with that all last year, remember? And we covered a bunch of these guys doing it's going to go into recession. You need to put all your money in gold shit, right? We were making fun of them because they're just selling gold. And yet, when did that recession happen? Fox News said we were going to be in a recession all last year. Never occurred. And we've been in a Goldilocks economy for pretty much the last year. I mean, it's just horseshit.
I mean, I don't blame people for wondering when that will hit, because it tends to be cyclical, and like roughly every 10 years or so, we end up hitting one. So, when you kind of look loosely at those patterns, people go, should be hitting. But you can't necessarily guarantee just because, something happened that it's going to pan out that way.
Yeah, well, it used to be that we used to say the 7-year cycle, right? Roughly. Because there was a little brief one with Clinton in 94, but it was really nothing. And then 2001 was the next one, and that was pretty bad. And then there was some stuff in 2002 and 3. And then 2008 was the next one. And then they thought, okay, well then if 2008, that means 2015. Because it's a 7-year cycle. And yet, we never really hit that recession. And even COVID, we didn't really hit a recession. I mean, you could argue it, but I wouldn't think so because it bounced back. Once we got vaccines, it bounced back pretty quick.
Right,
so,
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of the thing is, I don't know that applies that much anymore. I mean, it did for a while there. I don't know anymore that it does, that sort of that cycle goal. I mean, there will be a recession again at some point, but it's usually something serious that causes it. You know, we probably won't see it coming until it's right there in front of us. So it's kind of hard to sit down and go, oh, I'm going to predict a recession. Well, you know, I don't know. Maybe North Korea fires a nuke and hits Tokyo. And then, you know, we're at war. Then there'd be a massive recession. Right? The only way there wouldn't be is because the war machine would kick up and the government would spend trillions of dollars. Which is bad because they're those, you know, do-nothing government jobs that Fox hates. You know, the military.
Right.
So, anyway. I just wanted to cover that. I think it's all good news, though. Things are good right now. So, and it's pissing them off.
I just like seeing people feeling positive for a while, you know, because there was a lot of expectations of doom and gloom for so long that I'm kind of enjoying it flipping the other way a little.
Yeah, kids, enjoy it when life is good, because it doesn't last forever. You know, make hay while the sun shines. That's all I can say. You know. Anyway, so let's get into we're gonna go ahead and get into the news now a little bit. The one I wanted to start with was the Supreme Court, because we've been bitching about them for a while. And they've just been making shit up, and it's been really corrupt, and they've been taking bribes, and, you know, Clarence Thomas has, and Alito has, and Roberts has to a degree. Well, Samuel Alito, just recently got caught into a little scandal where he had a upside-down American flag in support of January 6th hanging outside of his house. And they asked him about it, and he said it was, well, his wife hung it up because she got in a dispute with the neighbor. And it turned out that's bullshit because the dispute, there was a police report, and the police report happened after the incident where his wife hung the flag up. Right? So, in the rules, you're not supposed to do that as a Supreme Court judge. Show any sort of bias or anything like that at all. And so he's doing that, but he blamed his wife. And it turned out he kind of lied about that even. But, while that's going on, it also recently, he leaked Supreme Court decision on the Hobby Lobby case for them to not allow birth control, to cover birth control in their health care plan because they're Christian and they're against, you know, people having sex. Mm-hmm. He leaked that, and the thing about it, that decision is the Supreme Court will make a preliminary decision and then they'll argue about it later on, and sometimes justices will switch. But if you leak it, and everybody finds out about it, then it puts pressure on the justices not to switch, and it makes it harder for them to change their minds. This also happened on the Dobbs case, which ended Roe v. Wade. And we had talked about this last year, that it was probably Alito that leaked it. Well, we know now he did. And he was the one who wrote that decision. And recently, with the flag shit and all that going on, and all the corruption in the Supreme Court going on, a reporter who does undercover work went in, actually got and talked to Samuel Alito and his wife at an event, and she caught him on tape saying some horrendous shit. And we're going to listen to that real quick here.
Know that we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to happen for the polarization to end. I think that it's a matter of winning.
I think you're probably right. I think one side or the other is going to win. I don't know. I mean, there can be a way of living together peacefully, but it's difficult, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised. So it's not like we're going to split the difference.
All right.
Spoiler alert. It's not.
Okay, so that's Nicole Wallace. But yeah, I mean, he's already saying it's got to be one side or the other to win or lose. He also went on later to say, yeah, I think America should be a Christian nation and we should force Christian values, which is a total violation of the First Amendment, which is the Establishment Clause. It says that you should not, well, Congress shall make no establishment to a religion, but the Supreme Court shouldn't either. But it shows you that that's where he's leaning, that he's already biased and he's already just a right-wing politician, and he's not actually a judge. Because a judge would take all that out and just weigh the evidence. That's the whole point of the court system.
Right.
So I just think it's horrendous. But he got caught saying that, you know. I did hear Jamie Raskin and Ocasio-Cortez. They're pushing a bill now for an ethics bill for the Supreme Court, which will limit they can't take gifts of more than $50 in a year from any individual, because they've been taking these $100,000 vacations, and Clarence Thomas has a motor coach, which is like an RV, only a lot more expensive, and that was a gift. And his adopted grandson, his entire private education was paid for by a guy who's had several cases in front of the Supreme Court that Thomas has ruled on.
Oh my.
And that guy's taking him on luxurious vacations, and his wife and shit. It's just been... So they're going to limit all that. They're going to put in more ethics and codes, and they're going to... I mean, honestly, at this point, Roberts, who's the Chief Justice, should be doing something. And right now, I can tell you, I bet you Alito and Thomas, either way, if Trump wins, they'll probably retire. But if Biden wins, I bet you they retire quick. Because they're going to be scared shitless about an impeachment hearing. Because if Biden wins and he gets the House and Senate, they are in deep shit, and they know it. And so I'll bet you they bail either way. They're gone next term. So, in fact, this could be good or bad. This could mean that if Trump wins, the Supreme Court stays kind of as it is, because he's going to put in two guys just like him. But if Trump loses, right now it's a 6-3 Supreme Court, Biden could put two people in there, and then it could be a 5-4 more liberal Supreme Court.
Right.
Because we're playing that game of somebody's got to win, right? And all it takes is one justice to do that. And then that becomes the game. It becomes cutthroat.
Right. Right.
So, anyway, I hope he's, he's just a miserable guy. His wife, they had her on tape too. I'm not even going to play it because she's even worse. She's a freaking nightmare. But who did we think he was going to marry? A sweet, charming person? No.
I mean, sometimes you get surprised, but not often.
Not often.
Not often enough.
Well, moving on to crazier stuff. Trump had a big speech in Nevada, and then he had to go to his probation hearing. So, in New York, you do what's called pre-sentencing. So, after you get convicted, the DA writes their recommendation for sentencing, the defense writes their suggestion or recommendation or whatever, and then you go see a probation officer, and they usually do a quick interview. They ask you about mental health, they ask you about previous criminal things, previous civil offenses, sexual offenses, things like that, right? And they try to determine, are you showing remorse, are you trying to change, are you being active? And then they make a recommendation for sentencing to the judge. So Trump had to go to probation, so we're going to cover that real quick here. It's not ultra exciting, but...
This NBC exclusive on the Zoom meeting tomorrow. And how might the Trump team prepare for this probation interview? Because he's kind of busy for the next few hours.
Please welcome the chairman of the...
Right, Alex. He's going to be taking the stage here shortly in Las Vegas. I should note it's going to be more than 100 degrees here today out in the Las Vegas sun. But tomorrow, upon his return to Mar-a-Lago in Florida tonight, NBC News has learned that he will be sitting down over a virtual Zoom session alongside his attorney, Todd Blanche, with a probation officer in New York for a sit-down interview. This is where the probation officer, ahead of his sentencing on July 11th, is able to ask Donald Trump questions about his financial background, his mental state, his affiliation with other convicted criminals, and the extent to which he has any remorse about the actions that led to his conviction.
So I want to get into that real quick. So just cover that. So they're doing that. He's at the Nevada rally thing, which we'll cover here in a second. And it was over 100. And Trump did it in the middle of the day because he had to leave Nevada to go to San Francisco to suck up to all the Silicon Valley billionaires for money. And so he held it in the middle of the day. He was still late. So they had 50 people that got heat stroke and had to be hospitalized from that rally.
Oh my gosh.
It was really...
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. Anyway, so he's going to the probation thing. So you have to understand, are you associated with anybody with criminal records? Like half his cabinet. Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, what was it, Joe Arpaio, Miller. I mean, you name it. These people have all been, how many people? Most of his attorneys have pled guilty or are being indicted. A lot of the people that were from RNC have been indicted. So, do you know any criminals? Yeah, pretty much all my friends. Right? We're all criminals.
Like, the whole gang.
So then he's got to do that. He's got to show...
Our favorite color is orange.
Right, and then they're going to say, okay, is he showing remorse? No, he's been yelling at and blaming the legal system. Oh, and the judge is crooked, and he's been blaming the judge's daughter, and doxing the jury, and all this shit. Trying to, talk shit about the witnesses. And he's still saying he's innocent, and it's all a sham, and it's all Biden's fault, even though it's the state of New York. Biden has nothing to do with it. So not showing any remorse. So, I mean, really, this whole thing, I heard that the whole thing was like 30 minutes. It was pretty quick, but I'm just going to read this for you. So this is from the NewYorkCourts.gov. I'll just show you the thing. It's just kind of small writing, so I'll just read it for you. So a judge uses a pre-sentence report to help decide the defendant's punishment for the crime. So I'm going to skip to the second paragraph here. A probation officer, a social worker, or psychologist working for the probation department interviews the defendant and checks the defendant's criminal record. Okay? The probation officer may talk to the crime victim, the arresting officer, and the defendant's family and friends. The pre-sentence report includes a statement about what happened, if the defendant's personal history and criminal record, and a victim impact statement. The report makes recommendations for sentencing. Okay. The pre-sentence report, this is why it's there. It's a chance for the defendant's lawyer to say good things about the defendant, like that the defendant is in a counseling program, which he's not, or has a steady job and takes care of an ailing family member. He's not doing the ailing family member. I don't know about steady job either. The pre-sentence interview is a chance for the defendant to make a good impression and explain why he or she deserves a lighter punishment. So that was his chance. But it's funny because they're going to ask, do you have any sort of sexual crimes or sexual adjudications or anything against you? Oh, yeah, I raped a woman and then defamed her.
Yeah, there was once upon a time there was this rape situation.
Right, of E.G. and Carol. So that whole thing's just a shit show. I don't know what's going on with that. So Trump, at that Nevada rally where that guy was at, he gave a speech. Like I said, people got heat stroke and had to be hospitalized. But the speech was all over the place, and he was slurring a lot. He does that thing where, I don't know if you've ever known somebody who's had Alzheimer's or dementia or something, or Parkinson's. They'll do that thing where they won't finish the word, and they won't correct themselves. So it'll be like, well, I'm going to the park, instead of saying park, right? I want to go to, the police department, instead of saying department, right? He does that all the time now. I mean, it is, I mean, people have talked to other doctors and stuff, but that's almost always a sign of dementia. So, I mean, I think but he got to an interesting story. I think he was talking about electric cars. I might be off because it's hard to follow anything he said. People were walking out, and then it came out later that most of the people there, like a 10% or 20% of the people there, were people he paid to be there. He's having a hard time getting crowd. But here's a joke. This is the HuffPost. So they've been doing the joke because he tells this story about electricity, and now everybody's calling it Trump jumps the shark. And for those of you who don't know, jumping the shark is a TV term from the 70s where there was a show called Happy Days, and I think it was the 4th or 5th season. One of the main characters, they had him jump a shark shark on water skis. And it was so stupid, and they said, we've lost the show completely. It's so stupid. They've run out of things to write about. They're at the end of the rope kind of thing. That's what jumping the shark means in television terms. So
right. So now it's just called jumping the shark. When you've sort of run out of like real things to do or say.
Yeah. You're just sort of, you're just making shit up, right? So
right.
They're saying Trump jumped the shark in this speech, and he kind of literally did jump the shark in a way, and we're going to watch this real quick because it's fucking hilarious. So we get into this. Oh my goodness.
I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards. Or here, do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to end that. We're going to end it for boats.
So here's the deal. I think he's talking about electric cars, but you do realize that most boats and yachts have batteries. And that's been normal for decades. Because they power the equipment.
Right.
Right? Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge risk of electrocution from those batteries getting wet. I mean, it does happen, but it's one of those things where it's like, what does any of this have to do with policy? Or running for president? Or...
like, was he going somewhere and, like, we missed it? Does he go somewhere with that? I don't know.
But yeah, he jumped the shark, man. He's just talking about shit. He's interested in sharks, I guess. I mean, because remember Stormy Daniels said he made her watch Shark Week. after the sexual encounter, whatever we want to call it. But yeah.
Well, that's exceptionally weird, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's into sharks, I guess. It's like a little kid. You know, sharks have 3 rows of teeth? No, I don't give a shit, Billy. No, Donnie, just shut up. But I mean, the crowd in the background, I mean, they're staring at him like, what the hell is going on?
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right? Well, that was the headliner, but it was bad even before that. And I want to go to this. So, one of our favorites, Marjorie Taylor Greene, spoke before him. Now, she's all happy to be there, right? You had to throw her a little bone because she got really upset because she didn't make the VP list. And she's not gonna. But she was upset about that. She wasn't invited to his trial in New York with those others. So she was upset. So he had to throw her a bone here because, you know, he needs her donors. So she let her speak, and let's just say hers got weird too. So she's talking about his conviction here.
That's great. You guys are great. No, it is bullshit. And you want to know something? We aren't going to tolerate it. The Democrats and the fake news media want to constantly talk about, oh, President Trump is a convicted felon. Well, you want to know something? The man that I worship is also a convicted felon. And he was murdered on a Roman cross. We've seen political corruption. We have...
Okay. So
well, that got real weird, didn't it?
Well, this is after her recently saying, we're not in a cult. We're not in a cult. I don't worship Trump. But now she's comparing Trump to Jesus. He's just like Jesus, but I don't worship him. I worship Jesus, who is just like, but I don't worship him. First off, Jesus was not a convicted felon. Okay, wasn't. You know why? Because the term felony is a medieval French word, and there were no French people 2,000 years ago because the culture hadn't been developed yet. There's no French language. Yeah. So there's that. I don't think the Romans ever actually used a cross. I think they just used a stake and did the hands above your head thing. Anyway, but yeah, no, I mean, Jesus was staked up for claiming to be king of the Jews, and it upset the king of the Jews, and the Romans, they were in occupied Roman territory, so he went to the Romans, and the Romans executed him for basically for treason, for being a troublemaker. It wasn't really a trial, where Trump was convicted by a jury of his peers. I just think it's funny. But yeah, she's just fucking nuts. Not in a cult. I only worship Jesus. Okay, well, but Trump's just like Jesus. However, but I'm not.
I have to say, given who her supporters are, yeah, you know, she's kind of playing into that for sure, you know.
Well, she is. She is in a cult. She's just nuts. I mean, she's just totally crazy. You know, we all know it. It's the Jewish space laser lady. This is the everything's fucking nuts with her. But anyway, I just thought it was funny. So Trump jumped the shark, and Marjorie got a new messiah, and 50 people had to be hospitalized for heat stroke. That was the Nevada rally.
Yeah, that was quite a day. That's one for the books for sure. I don't know which books, but some type of book.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, meanwhile, Trump's railing about how his trial was unfair, Hunter Biden was found guilty on all 3 charges. We told you he was going to be found guilty. He was guilty. We knew he was guilty. He tried to take a plea deal. The judge didn't take it. You can argue back and forth about that. That happens, man. Sometimes the judge thinks the plea deal's stupid, and he won't accept it. It just happens. Which is kind of what happened to Hunter here. So Hunter went to trial, was found guilty on all 3 charges. You know, he's looking at a sentence. I think 25 years is the max, but I don't think he'll get 25 years. I think he'll get, because it's his first, conviction. I think they'll probably be whatever the minimum is, whatever it is, 6 months, a year. It's a gun charge. So basically what he did was, while he was using drugs, so he's an addict, right? Basically lied on a gun form when he bought a gun, saying he wasn't using illegal drugs. Right? This is one of those things, too, where you have to fill out those forms pretty much everywhere. But honestly, it almost never gets charged unless it's in connection with something else. But this was charged on him as a standalone issue. But it's funny because think about how many of your friends or people you know or anybody you know that owns a gun, and think about, have they done illegal drugs? So most people lie on that form who've done illegal drugs if they're buying a gun, right? Because remember, pot was illegal for a long time. So a lot of people smoking pot go buy a gun, right? So, just saying. I think it's stupid, but nonetheless, it is a crime. He is guilty. He's going to have to do whatever he's going to have to do to get it straight. Right. And in all fairness here, considering all the crimes he's committed with hookers and drugs and all this other shit, he's getting off light with this one. I'm just saying it. It's sad and everything, and he's been good about it. He hasn't bitched about it. He hasn't threatened the judge or the jury or the witnesses like Trump did. He didn't do any of that shit. So, he'll do his time and whatever, but that's just how it goes. But after they've been yelling and screaming on Fox about this, we're going to watch the Fox 5 respond to Hunter Biden. They've been yelling about him being guilty. Now that he's guilty, now they're not so thrilled about it. And they're still going to bitch about Trump. So we're going to watch a little bit of this because it's just fucking nuts. So here's the Fox 5. Right.
And we have brand new images of President Biden from just moments ago embracing his now convicted son, Hunter. The president blowing up his entire schedule, rushing back to Delaware to be with him. Hunter Biden found guilty on all 3 counts in his gun trial. The verdict still sending shockwaves throughout the White House, with Karine Jean-Pierre even canceling today's press brief. That's something she rarely does. Hunter is now facing up to 25 years in prison, but it is unlikely that he will get the maximum since it is his first offense. And it all happened so fast this morning, as Judge Jeanine will tell you. And the First Lady, Jill Biden, she was not even physically in the court yet to hear it being read aloud. She arrived just afterwards. President Biden says he will respect his son's conviction. But talk about irony. After the trial revealed that Hunter's revolver was dumped into a trash can, the president spoke at a gun violence prevention summit where he called for harsher gun control laws and for Americans to safely store their firearms.
So I want to get to a couple points there. So I thought that was interesting because they're trying to bash Biden here, but what are they showing? They're showing him dropping his whole schedule for the day and rushing to Delaware to be with his son, to be supportive after his son got convicted.
What did not happen somewhere else?
Well, I think some of his kids were there, but his fucking wife didn't show up at all. You know, his oldest daughter, Ivanka, didn't show up at all. She's trying to distance herself from him.
Right.
But that's the thing, is it's like, furthermore, Hunter's guilty. They know he's guilty. Now, here's the thing. These people on Fox have been bitching, it's corrupt and da-da-da, and Biden's corrupt and he's going after Trump and blah. Biden could have gotten rid of this easily. Because it's a federal charge, and he's the President of the United States. He's the head of the executive branch. I'm going to tell you about how ways he could have gotten rid of this or tried to get rid of it. And I'm going to use this old story from the AP. 10 instances of possible obstruction in the Mueller report. This is Donald Trump committing obstruction of justice. And they've got it listed out. He tried to pressure Comey, who was the head of FBI, into ending it. Biden could have pressured the DOJ into dropping this. He didn't. President's reaction to the continuing Russia investigation. Among the evidence is the president telling then White House counsel Don McGahn to stop Attorney General Jeff Sessions from recusing himself. So Biden could have done a simpler thing. He could have taken whoever was in charge and put in somebody else and forced them not to recuse themselves. He fired Comey. Not Trump, but Biden could have fired Merrick Garland and put somebody else in the DOJ to try and do that. He could have appointed a special counsel and tried to remove. He could have removed the special counsel. There wasn't a special counsel in this case, but he could have removed those people. I mean, there's all these things. And furthermore, the other thing Biden could have done at any point over the last year and a half this has been going on, Biden can pardon him. And nobody can stop him. The courts can't say anything. Nobody can say he could, but he's not gonna. So you can't sit there and say Biden's corrupt.
Right.
Right. Now we'll see how they spin it, but it's like it's interesting to me. You're showing him being a good dad, and now you're gonna talk shit. So let's see how.
And a president with integrity.
Yep. So let's see. I just want to take a minute and see what they spin on this.
By the way, it's time we establish universal background
Oh yeah,
checks.
that's the other thing. They were bitching about him doing the gun law thing. So he's pushing for universal background checks and more strict gun laws. Why? Because firearms are the #1 cause of death for children under 18 in the United States. The #1 cause, more than anything else. Kids get shot and killed.
Right.
That's fucked up. So, and furthermore, I think it's funny because they're bitching about him. Well, your son just got tagged with a gun charge. Well, yeah. What does that tell you? There's a problem with the gun laws if my drug addict son can get a gun.
Right. He'd probably say he shouldn't have been able to get one.
In the first place. No shit. So, I don't see it as hypocritical. I see
like
it as...
who in their right mind decided giving him a gun was a good idea.
Right.
You know?
It's just funny to me. So let's just jump in. Then we'll jump in here. Jesse Waters.
Right, Jesse, we have not heard from you today. Love to get your thoughts as to what happened.
Well, it gave me a little boost of confidence in the American legal system.
That's good.
Although they still have a lot of work to do to win me back.
Oh.
It's kind of like watching an Eagles game and the refs throw 20 flags on us in the first half and then finally throw one flag on the other team. Okay.
Well, here's the deal, Jesse. Once again, which side are you on? Are you on the side of justice, or are you on the side of my team, the Republicans? Because that's the problem with his thinking there. If you're throwing 20 flags because they commit 20 violations, and then they throw one on the other side because they committed a violation, that's not unfair, that's fair.
Right.
Right? I mean, if I get convicted because I killed 20 people, and then Lacey gets a parking ticket, I go, well, I don't think that's fair. Lacey only got a parking ticket. Well, all Lacey did was not pay the meter in time. You killed 20 people, but that's not fair. How come her team's not getting called? That's his whole fucking analysis. That's how stupid it is. I mean, because he's trying to make it so like it should be equal on both sides. And it's like, no, it's justice. It's supposed to be based on what you did.
Right.
Right. Not on which side you're on politically.
You're not doling them out like a deck of cards or whatever. Oh, 5 for you, 5 for you. You
yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's not about... Well,
this isn't a game of Go Fish.
Yeah, I mean, well, Your Honor, I'm a member of Greenpeace. Yeah, but you murdered 30 college girls, so you're going to jail forever. I mean, that's such a stupid analogy, but...
It's still not a fair game. Remember, Biden's prosecutors tried to sweep this under the rug last year and have this guy not go to jail at all and have lifetime...
They didn't, though. He's lying. They didn't do that. They could have, but they didn't.
Immunity until the judge was like, say what? And now he might have to serve some prison. He might have to actually serve prison on this and the taxes. He should have listened to Nancy Reagan. She said, say no to drugs. And a lot of these foreigners targeted Hunter Biden.
And Nancy Reagan, with the drug program, did it as an extenuation of what Nixon had previously done because she wanted to target minorities. So, yeah, I mean, this is all just bullshit. So, like, now they're having to justify it, right? It's like Trump. Trump gets convicted. They have to fucking find a way to... Well, no, it was all rigged. The whole thing was rigged. It was, the judge and da-da-da, and Biden's involved, and then Biden's manipulating all this shit. And then it's like, okay, well, Biden's son just got tagged for a gun charge for lying on a form. And he just got tagged, got 3 convictions. They're minor felonies. He's going to do some time. Oh, right. Well, Biden did try to stop it. He can't stop it. He could just pardon him. He could have gotten rid of this, a year ago. He could have pressured the DA not to press charges. Could have had that guy fired.
And yet he's not.
He didn't do any of that shit. He's not going to pardon his son. He could pardon him right now. So I don't know how you sit there. I mean, they can't square this circle. And so they're just going to talk around it and talk in circles. I mean, I guess the only bullshit you could say is, well, he's sacrificing his son so he can look fair. But that doesn't make any sense either because he doesn't have anything to do with any of this shit. So.
Or it just is fair? I don't know.
It's just what it is. His son committed a crime. Trump committed a crime. They got indicted, right? Which means they had a grand jury to indict them. They decided to indict them. And then they got a jury trial by their peers, and they got found guilty by the jury of their peers. It's not a perfect system, but it's probably the best one that's ever been concocted. And that's what happened.
Right.
So you can't sit there and go, this is different from the other. No, they both had their chance at trial in front of a jury, and they both lost. And honestly, kids, like, most people lose in trial. You know why? Because DAs typically don't take cases unless they're positive they're going to win. Because no DA wants to be the guy who's losing all of his cases. So, It's just one of those things that cracks me up. So that was Fox coping with the trial. Let's see. Let's go. While they're coping with that and the criminal aspects of Biden and Trump and whatnot, there's been kind of a wild ride here with the far right media. So I don't know if you remember, Fox was about a year ago. They got tagged with a $700 and something million settlement for lying about the election being stolen. So they had to pay that off, and so they've been trying to be somewhat more cautious since then. But they've also been sued before, like Tucker Carlson and whatnot. And they've had to admit that most of their programming is not news; it's just for entertainment, and no reasonable person would believe the things they say. That's what they pled in court to try and get out of some of this, and they did. But there are more right-wing people that they've kind of pushed on and worked with going forward. They've had some hard times befall them recently. Let's jump into... I don't know if you remember Alex Jones. Alex Jones was the big far-right guy. Had, InfoWars was the name of his show. It was like fucking 5 hours a day. And he'd get on there and spin all these conspiracy theories. And Trump had been on his show a couple times, and he was real close to Trump, and he'd spin all these conspiracy theories and whatnot, and Trump would repeat them. And anyway, he had this whole conspiracy theory that the Sandy Hook incident where the children were shot by the lone shooter, that was all a deep fake by the government, and it was all made up, and that nobody really died. And the parents of all these deceased kids then got death threats and harassment from his viewers. And then they sued him for defamation and all this shit, and really horrendous case, which he lost, and I think damages were like billions. So he's that, but finally a judge has allowed them to seize his assets. So I'm going to go into this as the Young Turks, and they're going to cover this real quick because Alex Jones had a real hard time because now they're going after everything he owns. Plus, his future earnings will now go to them to pay this off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Resisted converting his personal bankruptcy into a Chapter 7 liquidation. That has changed. A lot has seemingly changed for him financially, emotionally. Here he is sort of working through his current circumstances.
I've had secret federal filings follow me that I'm committing crimes, referred to the Justice Department, which of course wasn't true. We'd already filed it in federal court months before. They didn't even check it. If you're going to frame somebody and lie about them to damn federal court with the know it's already filed in court, you bastard. So you. And anybody else that tries to go on your... You want war, you've got it. We're going to beat these people. Now, I'll try to be dramatic here, but it's been a hard fight.
Look, as far as...
So he's ruined. And that's him at his most presentable. That's him on a first date. That's him meeting your parents for the first time.
Wow.
He's ruined. He's ruined. And
I mean, honestly, I don't blame him for crying because, like...
Oh, this is it.
That'd be a real breakdown moment for sure.
Well, and people don't... I remember this when I was a little kid. We used to, in Oregon where I live, it used to be a lot of neo-Nazis. A lot of KKK in the Pacific Northwest area. That's kind of gone away for the most part in the last, 30, 40 years. But there was an instance where an Ethiopian man was killed, and it turned out the guy who was responsible had a newspaper, I think it was called like the Daily Stormer or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But they didn't get him for the murder, even though he didn't kill him. His followers did, right? But what they did was the family was able to sue him for inciting that, and they took all of his money and all of his, pretty much his future earnings. And you never heard from him again. And that's kind of what happened to Alex Jones here. So, Alex Jones, bye-bye. So he's not going to be around to help Trump for the election cycle. So that's a bummer. What else have we got? Here we go. The Epoch Times, which is a right-wing newspaper that had a ton of money given to him. Well, they're a financial officer who was affiliated with Shen Yun, which is the little musical thing. I've seen it. It's, you can skip it. They was charged with laundering $67 million. So the Epoch Times is now in trouble. Bill Guan, chief financial officer of the Epoch Times, has been charged with participating in a transactional scheme to launder at least approximately $60 million of illegally obtained funds to benefit himself and the media company. So their whole company has been funded by right-wing money, and now money that they've gotten from ill-gotten gains. So illegal money.
Wow.
So they're now trashed and in the tank. I don't know that they're going to survive this. Probably not. So we're skipping along. So Alex Jones off the board. Epoch Times off. These are huge players. Millions of people watch these people. Huge players. Remember, Trump had that whole election scam thing, and he talked about this. There was a movie called 2,000 Mules, and it was done by a guy named Dinesh D'Souza, who's also a former convicted felon for, I think, campaign fraud. And he did this movie.
Wow, the whole gang here, the whole gang.
The whole fucking gang, that's what I'm saying. And he did this movie about how the whole 2020 election was all rigged. And the movie was debunked, but it's gotten worse for him now because this happened.
A big story that broke late Friday that got lost in all the Trump trial coverage. Salem Media Group, a conservative media giant, just issued an apology and retraction of the highly promoted and debunked Dinesh D'Souza documentary 2,000 Mules, which the company co-produced. The movie that had been debunked again and again claimed it had proof that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump, and they were insistent that the film proved it.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America. That's provable, and that's enough for me.
And it wasn't provable. The whole thing was debunked, and now they've had to pull the movie. They can't sell them anymore. Can't distribute it. The whole thing was bullshit. And Trump used to talk about this movie in his speeches. You'd see interviews and people would be like, well, did you see 2,000 Mules? And nope. Not only is it bullshit, it's such bullshit they had to pull it. So
wow.
So that's crap. So wow, what else? I mean, could there be any more going on? Potentially, I don't know. How about Steve Bannon, who has his big podcast where he's a big Trump supporter? Well, Steve Bannon, who's been narrowly avoiding jail, he was convicted a while ago, and he was trying to appeal, lost the appeal. Now, this happened.
Just a few minutes ago, a federal judge ordered former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to report to prison by July 1st to serve his 4-month prison sentence. Bannon was hoping to stay out of prison as he appealed his conviction for contempt of Congress. CNN's Sarah Murray is following the story from the courthouse. Sarah, tell us how this all went down.
Well, before we get into Sarah here, so Steve Bannon, July 1st, he's got to go to prison. So he won't be doing his podcasts and his media shit for, let's see, July, August, September, October. When's the election? Oh, yeah, early November. So he's off the board. Plus, while he's in jail, he's got another trial for, he did the Build the Wall scam, and didn't build the wall, and he got all this money from the Trump supporters. And I think that it was him. Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody. I think this was him. He got busted. He was on a yacht of some millionaire, and he got busted by the post office police. People don't know this. The post office has their own police force. They're pretty badass. So the post office busted it. Yeah. So he got tagged. So he's going to trial for that criminal charge. And guess who the criminal judge is who's hearing that in New York? Rashawn, the same judge who just heard the trial that convicted Trump. Same judge.
Oh, man.
Rashawn has got to be sick
wow.
of it. And he heard the Trump criminal trial on, the Trump Organization criminal trial, like whatever it is, a year or so. He's got to be fucking sick of these people coming in and out of his courtroom at this point. So that's what's going on.
Oh my gosh. He's going to be like, if I never hear a word about any of this stuff ever again, it'll be too soon.
Yeah, so it's like we've said before, it's all lies and bullshit. It's a 7-layer dip of stupidity and bullshit. It's just bullshit, stupidity, idiocy, yada, 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 and then I think they top it with mayonnaise. And that's the whole fucking deal, I mean. But they're all going down. It's all the sinking ship. I mean, it's just amazing. And it still shocks me that they're as close as they are in the polls. I mean, Biden's up now, but, you know, I don't typically trust the polls until you get to like August or September when everybody checks in. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he's not going to have all these people backing him anymore. They're gone. They're out of play. My favorite's still Alex Jones.
So basically, he's broke. The Republicans are broke.
Yeah. And
all of these really major people that were in his court before are out of play.
Yeah. Yeah. All he's got, he's got Fox News and OAN, and they still have donors giving him money and stuff. And he might get some billionaire donors, but honestly, the odds that look, we said this earlier in the year, there wasn't a chance in hell he was going to win. He had to make up too much ground. He got stomped by Biden the last time pretty bad.
But now he's just basically beating a drum on a unicycle by himself, man.
Yeah, I mean, they're just digging themselves deeper. I don't know how you get any of these independent voters as a convicted felon with all this shit going on. And especially since it's like, well, are things really that bad now? Well, Trump supporters might say that, but I don't think independent voters are running around going, yeah, life sucks. I want to change things up. I think they're going to go, things are pretty good. So do I want the guy where things are pretty good, or do I want the convicted felon where things were really bad before? We were in a pandemic, and he didn't do shit.
The point being, like, he hasn't said or done anything that should sway people that are on the fence over to his side. If anything, he's working really hard to try to like get into a neutral position, not even get them swayed over, you know? It's a lot to try to make up.
Well, the thing about it is, and this is just my opinion about it, I could be wrong, is the Republicans, they've gone in this right-leaning direction so far for so long where it's just all the racist people, right? And a lot of the sexist people, and it's the KKK and the neo-Nazi groups and all the conspiracy nutwings and all that shit, right? And they've narrowed that down. That this is the loudest part of their party. They have to appease this group. Well, it puts off the rest of the party of your, more quote-unquote normal Republicans. But a lot of them are still going to vote Republican because they're going to fall in line. But the thing about it is some of them are going to bleed off. And that's already a very small party in comparison to the Democratic Party, which is pretty big. So I think he's just screwed. I don't know where he's going to make up all these other votes. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and rig the election as much as they can in the various states. And then they're going to basically claim that it was rigged and try and flip it and do whatever they can. But they can't win just by popular vote, for sure. And I don't know how they pull the Electoral College out at this point. I don't know where they're going to magically get these votes from.
No. Because they didn't have them last time, and it's way worse looking on him this time.
Well, yeah, and then recently, I wish I'd have brought this up. Maybe we'll do it next time. There was an election, a special election in Ohio, in a district that Trump won by a landslide, and the Republican Trump supporter did win, but he didn't win by very much. And it was like a 15 or 20 point swing for the anti-Trump guy.
Oh.
Well, that's not good, because he can't afford to lose Ohio. So it's starting to look like, especially and that's a rural district too. I mean, what do you think it's looking at in the urban populations in Cleveland and stuff? Do you think they're ultra thrilled about this? Probably not. So
no.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I do want to talk about this. We'll wrap up with this one last thing. Did you ever see the movie, what was it, Sunset Boulevard? With the old woman?
I've seen it. I saw it live on Broadway with Glenn Close.
Where she's the old woman who lives with her butler and he throws all the parties for her, right? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because I think this is hilarious. Tell us about that movie. Or the play you saw, at least.
Oh my God! It's so long ago. I guess I don't know where you want me going with it, but you just basically said, "Oh, I'm probably gonna hose it up. We're gonna have to tag in here because I saw it years ago. Glenn Close was fabulous." But yeah, essentially, she's kind of a lonely old lady that has these parties thrown that's sort of created by the butler. And
she's a has-been movie star, like a former movie star, right?
Right. And there's, you know, the thing with the younger man, I don't know. She still thinks she's got this sort of appeal that she kind of doesn't. You know, like it's sort of your classic. It's like your classic has been, but like doesn't realize totally that they're a has been. Like some people realize, but the person themselves doesn't realize, and somebody's kind of keeps trying to keep them boosted up. It's basically that sort of plot.
Yeah, but she's living in sort of this fantasy world where she thinks all these lavish parties, these people are coming to see her, but it turns out really the butler's paying these people to show up, kind of thing. Kind of like the Trump rally recently. Well, that gets me into this. Trump has had a habit of sort of thinking that there's a crowd there when there isn't. And it reminded me a little bit of Sunset Boulevard, where she thinks she's popular and famous, but she's not anymore. And I want to show you this. Here's a clip real quick. Here's Trump on the tarmac. Go ahead.
I have to interrupt, and I have to say I hate that we're comparing Glenn Close to Trump, because I love Glenn Close. But you know what? I'm also sitting here scratching my head trying to figure out who's the butler in Trump's little scenario. I'm trying to decide who I think the parallel character is here.
It's his little entourage, his campaign entourage. Anyway, that's the thing. I'm not comparing him to Glenn Close at all. I'm comparing him to the character of the old woman.
We love you, Glenn Close. We're really not comparing you to him. We promise.
We're not even comparing Glenn Close to the character. She's just the actress that portrayed her. We're not going to sully the good name of Glenn Close.
You did a very good job.
Yes. But I just want to show you this. So Trump's on the tarmac going to his plane, and he's going to start waving at nobody. Just waving at nobody for whatever reason. Here it is.
Just for a photo op.
Yeah. There's nobody there. That's it. So he did that, waved at nobody. That was one instance, okay? I would just be like, okay, that was weird. I'd have let it slide. Here's another instance of him leaving Trump Tower.
See you later.
Waving. Watch the camera pan around to who he's waving to. Nobody.
See you later.
There's nobody there.
See you later.
It just cracks me up. He's just waving at nobody. Okay, so twice that happened. Twice could just be a coincidence. Could just be a coincidence. But three times I think is, now we're looking at it as a fact, don't you think? Am I agree, disagree? Am I off on that one? So let's see if I can get to this clip real quick.
Wait, a Republican fact or like a fact?
A fact. A fact.
Oh, all right.
So here's him he went to the NASCAR rally. Not that anybody was expecting him to be there. And here he is standing on the side, waving at nobody's there for him. He's just waving for the sake of waving.
Who is he waving at? People on Twitter
He's not waving at anybody. It was just weird. Oh, man. So he's just been waving at nobody.
I feel kind of regal doing this.
But that's what it reminded me of, Sunset Boulevard. Have you ever done that too, where you waved at somebody who thought you knew, and then realized, oh, I don't know that person, and they don't wave back at you, and then
I feel like a real idiot.
And you just feel like a moron. We've all done it, but it's like, he's now doing it on purpose. I want to jump into one more, because this guy did this for Occupy Democrats. I think he's with TYT, maybe. I forget. No, he's with Occupy Democrats. So he did this whole bit, but then he covered the Fox News segment where they covered some of this NASCAR thing, and it was really, really stupid. I'm just going to play it real quick.
Guess is a deliberate and strange attempt to distract their audience. It's hard to hear, but listen to the nonsense that they spin to their viewers.
Madison, we know it's loud there, but what has Donald Trump been up to so far?
Yeah, sorry about the noise, Tommy. To Charlotte Motors Speedway by flying wave over the track, and the crowd erupted.
Listen. Way to cover it, Fox News. That was some crack coverage for you. Isn't that amazing?
Oh my.
I'm going to do it now. All right, ready? Let's see. I'm going to do it. Okay, ready? So, we're here covering Fox, and here it is.
To Charlotte Motors Speedway by flying.
That was my coverage.
What is happening? They've all lost their ever-loving minds.
They're all fucking done. Oh, man. So Trump's waving at nobody. Fox is trying to make it sound cool, and yet they can't even get the fucking... Why do you have a reporter on the NASCAR track? You know you're not going to be able to hear a goddamn thing she's saying. You've got cars whipping around at 200 miles an hour. Oh, man. It's perfect. They're just perfect. They're perfect people.
Oh, my God.
Their stupidity brings me so much joy. I can't even tell you. Well, I'm going to do one last clip here to end from the David Pakman show. But remember, Trump's got a debate coming up with Biden here in about a week. Now, we said he's not going to show. He's going to chicken out at the last. He always does. It's like, I'm going to testify. And then he didn't testify. Right? Last time he debated Biden, Biden stomped him in the first two, and Trump refused to show to the third one. He's not going to show up. Because, A, he's slurring like crazy, and he's going to sound horrible and look terrible on camera. B, they're not going to let him talk over Biden. They're going to cut his mic. And they've already said they're going to do that. C, there's not going to be the audience for him to play to. And D, I think the bigger thing is, Biden's now going to be like, well, convicted felon Donald Trump. Adjudicated rapist Donald Trump. I mean, he's got Donald Trump, wannabe dictator. Donald Trump, cutting Social Security. He's got nothing but... I mean, Biden's going to be there with fucking cannon after cannon, and Trump's going to be there with a water pistol. It's going to be a joke. So he's not going to show up. He's going to chicken out. But you got to set the stage. So his buddy Sean Hannity's going to help him out with that, and David Pakman's covering this. This is fucking hilarious.
Right on schedule. People around failed former president and convicted felon Donald Trump are starting to float the idea that he shouldn't go to the debate with Joe Biden. That is scheduled for just 2.5 weeks from now. We are 16 days away from the first presidential debate, June 27th, between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And Sean Hannity is now floating the idea, maybe Donald Trump shouldn't go. And I can assure you, Hannity wouldn't be doing this unless this is something someone floated to him, and probably someone close to Trump. So we'll read into it in a moment. Take a listen from last night.
Now, there are some even saying, Mark, that Donald Trump might be wise to just pass on the first debate, wait till he's nominated, then debate him. What would you say to that?
So do not be confused here. There are some people saying is code for this has been fed to me with Trump's approval.
Which is a fact, because we know Trump and him are really close. And they talk to each other.
Some people are saying, yeah.
Right. And he's done that before. Well, people are saying, what he means is Trump told me this. Or one of Trump's people told me this. Yeah, Trump's not going to go. He's not going to. He can't. He's going to get embarrassed. And even he has to know he's lost it. To a degree. So...
Yeah, but what... There would be no way of him gracefully getting himself out now.
No, not to the general public. To his supporters, he's going to do, Joe Biden didn't want to take the drug test. Actually, Biden said he would take the drug test if they both took it. But Trump can't take it because he's high on Adderall all the time. He's high on speed. But, yeah, so the drug test, he'll make something up. The drug test, or or they set the venue up against me, or it's all rigged, or blah blah blah, or I have something else going on, or whatever it is. He's just gonna make some shit up. Plus, the date, July 27th, is perfect, or June 27th, sorry, is perfect because the whole time Biden's gonna be like, well, in 4 days, Trump needs to go to sentencing for his criminal trial.
Right.
So, once again, there's too much ammunition. He can't ever do the debate. The smart thing, and I think this is probably what Biden will do, is Biden will show up. And I think Jake Tapper's doing it. And it'll just be Biden and Jake Tapper, and they'll just sit there live on TV talking about what a pussy Trump is for not showing up. And they'll just do the debate by themselves. And Trump supporters will, they'll all still love him and everything, but independents are going to sit there and go, guy didn't even fucking show up to the debate. Because you got to remember, independent voters, they don't know any of this stuff. They don't watch shows like ours or David Pakman's. They don't watch the news. They've got jobs and kids and shit. They don't hear this stuff, but they'll hear big things like Trump's convicted. They'll hear big things like Trump didn't show up to the debate.
Right.
They're not following all the detailed shit we go through for the most part, but they'll hear that. So, yeah, Biden's got him fucking, just by calling him out, Biden's got him, dead to rights. Biden's won this debate, hasn't even started.
Hey, if you win via forfeit, you still win.
Yeah. So, watch Trump check it out. Anyway, we call it, it looks like he's already setting the stage for I'm not going. Otherwise Hannity wouldn't be up there saying that. And David Pakman's absolutely right about that. So that's it.
Right.
So the only other thing left in my final prediction is I think the judge, Merchan, gives him, this is my guess. I could be wrong, but this is my guess. I think Merchan gives him a year, 6 months to a year, and I think Merchan will stay the start of the sentence till after the election because that avoids the constitutional problem or any appeal on a constitutional problem. So I think that's what ends up happening. But we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
Let me know if you think I'm wrong.
You heard it here.
Yep.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you think it'll be something else. Do you have a prediction on how you think it'll go?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think is going to happen. That's just my guess. Because you can't really give him probation, because you only give probation to people if you think they're going to comply with probation, which Trump is not going to do. We all know that, right? You could give him, community service and shit, but he's going to fight that. So, all you've got left is prison. There's really nothing else you can do other than throw him in jail. So.
Right.
Anyway, well, that's kind of our show for today. Lacey, where can everybody catch you?
As always, you can catch me and my material at mysensewithsense.com. You can find articles, workshops, and courses. You can write in about any of those things, or you can send us some clips, topic requests, or invite yourself on the show with us if you email us. And Duncan, where do they email us?
You can email us at gossipfinance at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. It's down below. Thanks everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.